Hello, my name is Andrea Trevino, and I am doing the Educational Leadership Final Project for AEP 855. I've chosen equity as my topic of discussion because it is important to have fairness for all students to have the same opportunities. I feel it's a difficult challenge for schools to accomplish, especially those that live in low socioeconomic areas. Teachers have to overcome the obstacles faced and meet the needs of all students regardless of their backgrounds. Every child deserves a good education and the best teachers to teach them. I'm going to show you a video clip that's 9 minutes long on education equity
E3.
excellence.
One cannot have educational excellence without equity. Part 1 of Part 3. What is educational excellence? The challenge the U.S. faces today is that the vast majority of our students are not excellently prepared for the workforce. From educators like Linda Darley Hammond to Geneva Gay, from authors like Tony Wagner to Thomas Friedman, and from corporations like Oracle to HP, they all agree we need to redefine educational excellence. Another way to say this is, what does it really mean to be smart? Traditionally, being smart means how much you know. To use a sports analogy of American football, the end zone would be equivalent to high school graduation. Students are working their way down the field trying to learn as much content as possible. When they've learned enough, they graduate, and we call this being smart. There are two problems with this traditional way of winning. First, in this country, we have an educational achievement gap to start with. Based on race, class, gender, immigration status, etc., students are starting on different parts of the playing field. For example, low-income students do not have access to a private SAT tutor, or immigrant students must first learn to master the English language before they learn the content. But even if the U.S. had closed the gap, we don't have the population compared to China or India to compete in this game. As many of you heard, they have more honor students than we have students, so we're never going to win. The second problem is that being smart is no longer just content knowledge, or in other words, just knowing stuff. The traditional educational approach has been like a drip system of knowledge that goes into a student who can later spew out answers on a standardized test. Like a tsunami, there is an overwhelming amount of information. We need a new game in the 21st century, for being smart is no longer how much you know, but how to navigate what is known. As a result of these two problems, we clearly have an educational crisis, because the rising tide of water is not affecting some of us, but rapidly drowning all of us. Part 2 of 3. How does equity affect education? What's the difference between in-risk students versus at-risk students? Our educational crisis is like a rising tide of water that is not affecting some of us, but rapidly drowning all of us. Traditionally, in crisis, the medical field has a proven response system that helps to identify what needs exist. This system, used by ERs across the world, the Army and the Red Cross, categorizes people based on their needs. These categories are tagged as green, stable, but they still need attention in order to prevent future complications. Or yellow, they need observation and some medical attention. And red, urgent care is needed or the patient will die. We need to transfer this proven approach to education. And to help us understand what this would look like, we're going to follow a group of students, one of which is named Kelly. So as Kelly enters high school, the reality is only 75% will graduate high school. And this is 60% for African Americans and Latinos. The students who do not move forward are what we call in-risk. They'll represent the red category. Of these in-risk students, half of them stated they did not see school as relevant to their lives or that the classes were engaging. Now, of the remaining students, only 35% will be college ready and be eligible to attend a four-year university. This is only true for 25% of African Americans and Latinos. The students who are not college bound are what we call at risk, because they are living in an exposed or potential at-risk environment. These students make up the yellow category. The remaining students who, quote, made it still have another hurdle to overcome. These students are at risk in the future and make up what we call the green category. The reason that these students are at risk in the future is because only 60% will graduate college within 6 years. What many people don't know is that according to Fortune 500 companies, less than 25% of college graduates are excellently prepared to enter the workforce. So with only 5% of all our students in the educational system excellently prepared for the workforce, basically all of our students are in some form of risk. So no matter what color Kelly is either not engaged, not prepared, or playing the wrong game. So the question becomes, what should we be teaching students? Part 3 of 3. What does educational excellence look like in a global society? So really, all students in the United States are at risk. As a result of globalization and advances in technology, one's value is no longer based solely on what you know. Like a tsunami, there's an overwhelming amount of information that is now stored in words that weren't around 20 years ago, like Google, YouTube, iPhone, apps, etc. People have more access on an individual cell phone with more knowledge than an Encyclopedia Britannica. Unfortunately, our schools are set up and continue to measure success primarily through content knowledge. See Ken Robinson's video, Changing Educational Paradigms.
Every country on earth at the moment is reforming public education.
The students who are successful in this system have the privilege, opportunity, and support to absorb content in a conducive environment. And remember, this is only 5% of all students. Ironically, the students like Kelly who are being deemed unsuccessful by schools are often unsuccessful because they are busy navigating the systems required for their survival. Kelly, who not only has to function at school, also has the added challenge of navigating through these lived experiences. So I can't tell you the race, class, or gender of Kelly, but I know that there are millions of Kellys who have challenging experiences to go through and haven't acknowledged that they have skills that they've gained from it. So this could be Kelly being responsible for younger siblings before and after school, while parents, if there are even two, are still working. Or having to catch 2 buses just to get to school on time, and in the afternoon, safely navigating 2 gang territories. Maybe Kelly has to translate at home from English to Spanish, but then also code switch from speaking standard English in the classroom to speaking Ebonics on the street. Or Kelly shares a bedroom with siblings and aunts and uncles. Or is just playing soccer, basketball, and football. But in addition, Kelly must figure out how to help to pay the family bills. And in all of this, Kelly is trying as a teenager to develop an identity that fits in all the circles that Kelly lives in. And in order to survive the navigation of this kind of environment, Kelly must have what we call cultural resiliency. And you know, the interesting thing that we found is that many of the students being deemed unsuccessful exhibit competencies that can be translated directly into 21st century skills, such as critical analysis, adaptability, cross-cultural communication, collaboration, and innovation. Now remember, these were the skills businesses were looking for in the future employees, and ones that were required to be considered excellently prepared for the workforce. So the question becomes, how can we translate the strengths from students' lived experiences into a new definition of educational excellence that values all student competencies and encompasses the 21st century skills required to navigate a new world?
Okay, I was just going to cut it short a little bit so I have enough time to do my PowerPoint. What I got from that video was that students cannot have educational excellence without equity. The 2 issues were educational achievement gap, and being smart isn't just about content knowledge and information you know, it's about how you use it. Also, the in-risk versus at-risk students. The in-risk were the ones who didn't move forward, and they weren't engaged or felt it wasn't relevant in their own lives. The remaining students were 35% college ready and eligible for a four-year university, but only 25% for African American and Latinos. At-risk students were students who are not college bound and live in an at-risk environment. At-risk in the future is only 60% graduate college within the 6 years. So only 5% are excellently prepared, either because they were not engaged, not prepared, or playing the wrong game. So the reality check is all students are at risk. Those students who are not successful may be because of navigating for survival and function at school. So to handle surviving skills at home and then being able to think about everything that's going on at home and then bringing it to school is pretty difficult. Handle challenges of living experiences and helping pay the bills is a reality that some students have to face. They have to help out at home, so they can't really focus on school. The article that I chose is called Equity in the Classroom by these two people, Joseph and Sherry. Article is about educational equity, and it can be achieved through heterogeneous groupings of students and differentiating instruction to meet the needs of all learners. Teachers use a variety of instructional strategies and assessments, such as differentiated instruction, to accommodate individual learning styles. Tracking was one example that they used, where they divide students into class size groups based on the students' prior achievements and test scores, and deliver differentiated learning experience to each group of students. This is a highly controversial topic because many researchers say don't do it. Overall, it showed that tracking doesn't benefit the majority of the students as expected, because it produces no positive results and encourages segregation and stereotyping. Differentiated instruction is what we are all familiar with. Going over this quickly, there was an AIM program who worked with 9th grade repeaters who are described as tough kids. So these teachers came together and talked of motivating ways to engage these students and have them come into class on a daily basis. They used motivational strategy games, they used different learning styles to fit the needs of the students, and student success showed that differentiating instruction can help promote equity in achievement for all students. Integrated assessment, how to be successful. Hold the students accountable. If you let the kids get away with something over and over again, they will get used to it and they won't be held accountable and won't take responsibility for it, and that gets them lazy. Set high educational expectations with rigorous standards. You hear the word rigorous a lot with Common Core and their standards. Student is given the opportunity to learn at his or her own pace and suited towards their own unique abilities. Again, differentiated instruction. Heterogeneous grouping and differentiated instruction create an atmosphere of equality and caring in the classroom, and both offer students a better opportunity for success. Course and research information, teachers as leaders. So modeling the way, for me it is, know who you are and have a clear vision of what you believe in. Set the example in the classroom. If you want your students to come in quietly every day, you have to show them that, train them to do it, and they'll get into a routine, and even model it yourself so they can have a visual of it. Inspire a shared vision. I would collaborate with other teachers and parents and try to figure out how you can help that student, what worked for that student last year, and what could we work on to strengthen their weaknesses. Challenge a process. Learn something new every day. Along with that goes taking more risks. I know for myself, I like to stick with something that I've already done because I know the majority of the time it works, but I like to take more risks. Enable others to act, build trust, understand others' needs. Encourage heart, show appreciation for individuals, and give positive feedback, but be genuine about it. Leadership challenges of being an inclusive leader is model instead of tell, build trust with self and students, get out of that busy schedule, learn to take your time or learn how to pace yourself and also be patient. Here are my references, and that's it. Thank you.